I'm Chrissa, the founder of Sunshine Support, and this morning I'm going to be talking to you all about school avoidance, if it wasn't obvious, school non-attendance, and why children find it so tricky to attend these days. And I'll come to your comments throughout, so keep the comments coming. And also, what we find on these live streams is that the actual comment section become a real area of comfort, validation, support. We all end up doing it for one another. So keep your comments coming, keep your questions coming. I'll come to them throughout. So do say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. And why you're watching. Let us know if you have. So, I'm guessing you're watching because this resonates. This is a problem. If your children have sailed into school and have no issues with school attendance, then you might find this a bit of an eye-opening live. But I'm sure that actually many of you are plagued by this problem. Now, many of you follow me on Instagram. If you don't, what are you playing at? Get over there. Follow me on Instagram. My handle is Sunshine Chrissa. But on there, you'll see that I'm hugely invested, hugely passionate topic. And I post daily about school avoidance, neurodivergence, and SEND. But school avoidance is my big one at the moment because I know that it's something that's affecting so many of us. I struggled with school attendance towards the end of my education due to extreme anxiety and physical disabilities. So I've been very open about my difficulties and my differences. I have Crohn's disease, which is hugely debilitating. It's probably the most disabling thing that I have. I have lots of things attached to that, as you can imagine, having an autoimmune condition. I also have ADHD, so I'm neurodivergent, very proudly so, always flying the flag. And those collide. Those two things, that physical disability and the sort of cognitive part, really do collide. And that can be really tricky. It can also be really awesome. But, if it was all awesome, then we wouldn't be here, would we? Explaining things. I'm also a SEND parent of nearly 25 years. I know, I got old enough. And I've got children who struggle to attend school, really big school attendance difficulties, really established school attendance difficulties, which is why I made it my business to learn more. And did you know, I'm going to give you some information that actually blows my mind now because I've just been recently doing some work around the impact that Sunshine Support has made. And actually, since the end of 2017, we've helped more than 80,000 parents and professionals with SEND concerns and queries. So many of those as well have been linked to school avoidance and non-attendance. It's not a new problem, but it is a growing one. Now, let's have a little look back to the comments. I know there's quite a lot of you coming through. It's like we're in a seance. Come through, come through. Morning, Jess in East Sussex. And Jess is our lovely Jess here. Jess is one of our amazing consultants who you see a lot on online, and you'll probably see more from because she's a bit like me. She likes being on the camera, don't you, Jess? We like a little chat. We do like a little chat. I'll get back to our Facebook comments. And hi from Gabby on YouTube as well. It's all happening on YouTube. So remember, if you ever want to see this, the recording of it, if you have to dash off or anything, Facebook don't store Facebook Lives anymore, but YouTube do. So you can always watch all of our lives. We do them every other week and we've been doing them for years. So if you want that amazing free resource, get over onto YouTube and subscribe to us because they're absolutely, it's a brilliant resource in itself. Okay, there's loads of you coming through and coming through. I feel like a psychic saying hello, which is absolutely amazing. So keep your comments coming. Irene says 16 months of struggle for my 5-year-old. Oh my goodness. Huge chunk of a life, isn't it, Irene? Things work, then they don't work. Sometimes did I just call her a she? I think I just assumed that it was a she. I'm really, really sorry. It's because I've got 4 daughters. I just assume everybody's got daughters. Things work, then they don't. Sometimes he just needs gentle encouragement. Some days he's so distressed coming in, but he goes. Schools say he's fine. They don't see anything. Beth says my 9-year-old autistic. Was just jumped. Well, my 9-year-old autistic daughter has developed a rain phobia due to unmet needs in school. A storm happened while she was in her most triggering lesson. Her needs were unmet for such a long time. She's now struggling to attend school at all. She's often there 30 minutes a day. I'm now working to get her an EHCP. Absolutely. That long-term plan of getting an EHCP is vital. And remember, regardless of all these pages and media outlets going, this is what's going to happen to SEND. We have no formal news yet about the SEND white paper, okay? We have hints and we have rumours and we have leaks. We don't know. We've been speaking to MPs who have told us they're pretty much sure what's in the white paper. And EHCPs are not disappearing, okay? They may change, but they're not disappearing. Right now, though, the law stays the same. So if you're watching this and you don't have an EHCP or an IDP if you're in Wales, or the equivalent if you're in Northern Ireland, Scotland, please just get your applications in, okay? Because you don't want to look back in a year's time to say, oh, things are exactly the same or worse. Get those applications in. We can help you with that. Head to our Sunshine Academy. Everything you need as a parent or a teacher is on the Sunshine Academy. Trust me, one-stop shop for everything set. Okay, I'm going to crack on. I will come back to your comments. ADHD brain here. I will get waylaid by the comments and we'll just spend an hour chatting. Now, if I had a penny for every time someone said to me, we didn't have all this school refusal and anxiety in my day, we just got on with it. Parents are just weak these days. Oh, my mum used to kick me into school. How many of us have heard that? When we're explaining, oh yeah, my child really struggles to attend school. How many of us hear these things? Like, it's 10 a penny, isn't it? Let me know if you've heard anything similar. I'd like to see the most outrageous one. I'm up for it. But I like to try and reframe these comments when they make their way to me. And I try and make conversation starters, but only if I'm in the mood. Because let's be fair, as a SEND parent, we do a fair amount of explaining, don't we? And it gets fairly exhausting. And we can't always afford the energy to keep having these discussions. So sometimes you just go, okay, all right, Bob, thanks for your unsolicited advice, and we move on. But this unsolicited advice and the sort of old-fashioned viewpoint, they're actually quite helpful. And I'll explain why shortly. I'm going to come back to it. Now, like I said, finding school difficult and overwhelming, for whatever reason, it's not a new thing. Okay, so even though we're seeing a lot of it, and there's lots of celebrities talking about it, which is great, it's not a new thing. Children bunked off. Do you like that term, by the way? 80s and 90s children. Remember bunking off? Kids used to bunk off. Nobody knew. Nobody knew. So why do we know now? Well, we know because we've got so many amazing safeguarding systems in schools, like digital registers, automated texting systems, GPS trackers on phones. Who tracks their kids? I know I do. I get an alert every time they arrive at school, and I get an alert every time they arrive at home so that I know where they are without feeling like I'm constantly checking up on them, because they don't need that. They need freedom. They need autonomy. So GPS trackers. And I think as well, more parents deliver, like hand deliver their children to school. I mean, I used to walk, it felt like miles. It probably was quite a bit actually to get to school. I didn't have a lift from anyone. Sometimes I would jump on a bus, but quite often I would just walk with my mates to school across, like down a mountain in Wales and back up a mountain in Wales. And so my parents would never have known if I'd arrived. They would never have known. I was just trusted to get there. But now everything is tracked. I know that sometimes I live quite close to our school. But like this morning, absolutely pouring down with rain, all my kids said, oh, Mum, can you just drop us outside? So I'm hand delivering them to the school, the car park outside. But Big Brother is watching generally, isn't he? And I mean, how many of the 70s, 80s, 90s kids bunked off for a cigarette? Think about it. You remember, if it wasn't you, you know somebody who did it. And to me, that sounds like a bit of a self-medicated brain break, if you want to put it in modern terms. I mean, there were other things that people were bunking off for behind the bike sheds. Let's call it connection and sensory breaks. But essentially, it's not new, is it? Let's be serious about this. Kids were skiving or bunking off, whatever terminology you wanted to use back in the day, not because they were naughty, although they were seen that way. They were seen that way. But it's actually because they just needed a break. Kids who needed those breaks, um, you know, they were bold enough to bunk off to save their mental health, but there were other kids who weren't bold enough to bunk off. And their mental health really, really suffered. And so they were seen as a different kind of kid, weren't they? Let's just go back to old money here. Think about your childhood. Think about your teenage years in school, because even though school attendance difficulties can start at any time, the most common time for them to become well established, and I'm on about like point blank refusal, right? We'll come back to that in a bit. Point blank refusal is between 10 and 11. And you think about what happens then. You got hormones, puberty, things become complicated when they're age 10 and 11 because you've got SAT and you've got extra pressure when relationships become more complicated and complex. Learning becomes less procedural and becomes more nuanced. And then you've got that pending doom of the senior school. Think about it. There's a reason that that happens. Now, those kids, let's go back, those kids who were not bold enough to bunk off, me. I know I seem like a bit of a gobby one, but I was so, oh my God, rule orientated. I would stick to the rules even though I would push them to the very limit. I was very proud of not getting caught breaking rules, but I was one of the kids who daren't bunk off. But I really needed to so badly. I was like the model student, well behaved, homework always handed in on time, never got detention. My homework, by the way, was done in the 10 minutes in the toilet before the lesson. ADHD brain always delivered an A grade under pressure. Typical ADHD girl. But how many of our girls, I know boys mask, but girls have got this sort of different sort of social makeup. So we do mask more. And you tend to find the girls' school attendance difficulties, therefore, typically present later on because they really try hard to hold it together, where boys can, and again, this is, typically, I appreciate there's always an exception to the rule, but boys sort of tell us how it is earlier on. But anyway, I do speak from experience here, because with regards to sort of the mental health side of things, school avoidance, anxiety, neurodivergence, school climate. We've got so many podcasts on this because I've made it my business to make sure that people feel validated and informed. So if you like a podcast, because I love a podcast, I listen in the bath, don't judge. I also listen to my to podcasts on my way into work, which is actually really good because we've got a lot of traffic around our office at the moment. It takes me about 40 minutes to get in. But look us up on Spotify, look us up on YouTube. It's called A Sip of Sunshine. And it's a brilliant podcast, even though I do say so myself, because we talk about all matter of things, and school avoidance seems to be woven in, as does neurodivergence. Yeah, have a listen, have a listen. Nice bit of self-care for you. So what I'm saying is school avoidance isn't new. We just hear about it more now. Parents are also listening to their kids more. I mean, I had a great childhood, parents who listened to me. But if I'd said to them, I don't even think the word anxious was in my dictionary, my vocabulary back then. But if I said to them, I'm too anxious to go to school, I'm not sure that that would have been a reason not to go or a reason to look into it. So we are listening to our children. We're giving them better language to be able to name their emotions, name their feelings, their viewpoints as well, because it's important. Just because somebody's under the age of 16 or 18 doesn't mean their viewpoint is any less important, and particularly when they're talking about themselves. So we are listening more, and we're listening to our children when they say that they're struggling. And I think many of us know, when this is your sign if you don't know, you don't have to send them in. It's not a legal requirement. I'll come to that shortly. We encourage those conversations at home, don't we? I know that I do. Our dinner time conversations are wild as we each talk about certain parts of our day. Nothing is off limits. And I really love listening to that laugh because I can't even share what we talk about. It's wild. We have a very, very open household. But we encourage our children to self-advocate, don't we? And so then we can't be cross with them when they do. One of my kids is well, I've got two in particular that are very strong self-advocates. One of them in particular really gets herself into trouble for it. She doesn't get into trouble at home now. because I will always praise her. She was actually talking to Libby Hill and I recently. We had a little chat. Had a get together. And if you don't know Libby, Libby's an incredible speech and language therapist, a real safe person, huge amounts of knowledge, just an incredible human being. And we talk a lot. I mean, Libby's been on my podcast. She's done tons of webinars and she's got loads of courses over on our Sunshine Academy. She's amazing. And, my daughter was saying there was one particular lesson where there was an additional member of staff in the room and she didn't understand why. My child's neurodivergent. And she said to the teacher, can you explain to me why that person's in the room? And the teacher was like, that doesn't matter. We're here to do a lesson. And so my daughter said, but I just need to understand what he's doing there because it doesn't make me feel safe to know that there's a person in the room that I don't know. And she said, it doesn't matter. So she told her viewpoint, her feelings, her emotions don't matter. Now, that would have been a simple fix. It doesn't cost anything to say. In fact, this teacher was a trainee teacher. It wasn't like it was Ofsted. So she could have just said, oh, he's a trainee and he's with us today. All the children would have benefited from that. Yeah, if that's what inclusion is. But my daughter ended up saying it too many times. And then the teacher got cross and told her to, be quiet. So my daughter thought, right, okay, I've been told if I need support, the safest person in my life right now is my mum. So she gets a phone out of her bag to ring me to say, Mum, there's a person in my lesson and I don't know who he is. And my teacher won't tell me and I feel unsafe. She then got a load of abuse, not a load of abuse, but negative points as they do. And the point system does actually work quite well for my kids for sort of in helping them with behaviors and stuff. Well, not behaviors, but because behavior comes from unmet needs or met needs. But they do feel incentivized by these point systems. Lots of children don't, by the way. That can also be a barrier to school. So we ended up speaking to the school and saying, look, there's quite a simple fix. The school are amazing, generally. It's just this one teacher that really didn't like my child, I think, which happens, not the teacher's fault. They just clash. It's all good. But as Libby and I were talking to her about it, Libby said, do it again. If it happens again, do it again. Risk those negative points to keep yourself safe. Never stop self-advocating. And I think it's really, really important. So I can't be anything but delighted when my child shows self-advocacy skills and also the understanding of what feels safe and unsafe, and that's different to danger. Because of course, if the building was on fire, that's a danger. Having somebody in a room could be a danger, but right there and then felt unsafe. But her perception of safe and unsafe is valid. And that is something we need to focus on. And that's the same with all children. Sorry, I'm going to sneeze. This always happens in a Facebook Live and YouTube Live. So sorry. So I mentioned just now that school isn't compulsory. We opt into school. Did you know that? So when you sign your children up for school when they're age 3 or 4, depending on where they're sat in the year, actually, we are opting in. We're telling the government, the local government, to the council, whatever, we're telling them, I want my child to be educated in a school building. We opt in. The default is actually keeping them home. We learned about this in a lot of detail, actually, in our home education webinar. It's an incredible webinar. It's not necessarily just for parents who want to home educate, but it does give those amazing options. And I think that's what we need to understand, the options available for our children if the school building is not where they're going to learn. So if you've not watched it and you'd like to, it's on our Sunshine Academy. It's also on there with a whole host of home education resources and courses for kids. So if your kids are struggling to attend school and they want to do something a little bit different, we develop courses. Did you know that? So we have a team of 8 teachers here at Sunshine, and we've got a full film production team and a studio. And so we actually create content for kids to learn. There's all sorts on there. So if you want your children to be learning, even though they're off school, go on the Sunshine Academy. You're missing out big time if you're not on there. It's a really good, brilliant, in fact, community space. It's so empowering. And there's a lovely private community away from prying eyes where you can just chat and get advice from one another, from our team. It's great. Now, let's have a little look at the reasons why children might struggle to attend school. So let's go back to the unsolicited advice that I mentioned earlier. So we didn't have any of this in our day. We've all heard it, haven't we? Well, the thing is, Bob, I'm going to call him Bob. It's very generic, isn't it? I don't think Bobs would be offended, would they? Are there any Bobs on the page? I don't know. Anyway, Bob, it's not your day anymore, is it? Your day, probably the 60s or 70s. It's not then. Everything's moved on. Society has changed. Our behaviors have changed. How we access life has changed. Yet there are still so many people who don't understand this. And they're often the ones we hope will understand. Family. Anybody suffer this in their families? You don't have to comment. Remember, it's a public page, but just know that you're seen, all right? I'm validating you. Friends. How many of us have heard from family and friends, the people who we thought were like, rooting for us, where they say, just be firmer. Just just get on with it. Why are you letting them get away with that? Like, are you the parent? Sounds like they're being the parent. We've all heard it. I'm really lucky that I've got an incredible best friend, and she's also a teacher, and she gets it. She has never judged me. She has literally pulled me up out of the gutter at times when I just didn't know how things were going to sort of move on. It's so important to have those safe people. But I think that actually at times like this, we realize who those safe people are, and that also hurts because we realize who the safe people aren't. And so, like, if this is you, just go and have a good cry, let it out, because it's okay to feel disappointed and cross and really blooming sad that the people you thought would understand just don't. Teachers sometimes don't understand either. And they're like, just get them in. Somebody commented on a page this week who said that their school, if their children don't attend, they send a bus round like the child catcher just to pick up all the missing kids. No, we're chasing attendance figures more than we're focusing on safety. That's not okay. I talk about this every day pretty much on my Instagram channel, by the way. So please do check it out. When we did the research, we saw that the reasons for school avoidance included things like bullying. Now, this is, of course, student to student, that's the obvious one. But there's also teacher to student, but also some students, particularly the very sensitive ones, neurodivergent kids, they might witness teacher to teacher bullying, or perceive it as bullying. They feel too anxious to be a part of that. How many of us just can't even be in a room where we can feel conflict? Because you can feel tension, right? You can feel tension. If the teachers are not happy, you can feel that. So why would you want to be there? We've all worked with someone. Fortunately, I don't now, which is great. But we've all worked with someone who's just miserable all the time. And it feels like the mood hoover in the room, You don't want to be there. You don't want to be sat next to that person because they're sucking the life out of you. They're sucking all the good energy. Anxiety, fear, overwhelm, sensory overload, all very good reasons to avoid a particular building, because that's what this is, okay? This is a building with people in it, okay? School, let's just call it for what it is. It's a building with people in it. Not many of us, as adults, opt to be in a building with 2,000 kids in it, and then, I don't know, 300 teachers. Not many of us opt for that many people in a workplace, do we? It's a big, overwhelming space. Communication is another reason they might struggle. Class communication, banter between kids, safety. Do they feel safe? Like I just said about my daughter. School climate is a huge factor when it comes to school attendance or school non-attendance. I've got a really brilliant infographic actually. So you can get this on our website. You can download it, but we're also going to post it on our Facebook page afterwards. But school climate, huge. These are the reasons your kids are not attending, by the way. It's not on the kid. It's these reasons. I speak about school climate a lot, again, over on my Instagram page, but also my colleague Kaylee is going to be exploring this over a 2-hour webinar in March. The tickets are selling really quickly, as you can imagine. If you want to come along, just type school avoidance webinar in the comments and we'll send you the link. School avoidance webinar covers all of these things, but also covers your legal rights as well as parents, but also for teachers. Kaylee's a really experienced Senko, but she sees things from both points of view. She's really, really balanced. So really fabulous resource, free on our website, but we'll put it on our Facebook page as well. But also that webinar, incredible webinar. So let's explore this a little bit further, because I did a bit of research. Now, school climate comes from a piece of research that you can state. I want to empower you with these tools so that you're not just going into school and saying school climate and then not understanding what it is. Okay, this is why you need to get these resources. If you're near Derby, pop in. We've got them printed in our atrium area here in our office. Come and grab one so you can take it in. You don't have to say, oh, I think, I believe. No, it's fact. There we go. It's a piece of research. It's by Zullig et al. Okay, it's all on here where you can take it in. And if you want somebody to blame, blame me. That woman at Sunshine, she did it. I did a lot of research into this as part of my master's degree. And I really love this piece of research, and I don't think it gets used enough. I don't see anybody else sharing it, but it makes so much sense to me. It's one of those things I'm like, why are we not talking about it more? Because actually, when I broke it down and I started looking into it further, it very much follows a similar process or thought pattern to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, you might or might not have heard of that. It doesn't matter. I'm going to show you another infographic, which I'm going to share on the Facebook page once I'm finished. So if you're on YouTube, stay on YouTube for now. But later on, because we can't share pictures on there, come across to Facebook and download these. So you've got them on your phone, save them, show them to whoever needs to see them. Now, this is this infographic. This is something I've created. This is mine. So I'm the OG of this one. This follows what children need to be able to attend. And the attendance is at the top. So we go from school facilities. All right. If the school facilities are not right, you don't want to be there. I won't come into my office if I can't access the toilet. Think about it. Order, safety, discipline is the second one. Again, we need to know the things are fair. If we liken it to the workplace, we have policies, we have etiquette, we have standard operating procedures here. We've got service level agreements. All sounds very management speak, but it's how we commit to you. It's how we commit to one another. If that's not right, then it's not going to work. People won't want to be here. They won't want to work here. They won't want to come and see us. So that has to be right. Once that is right, then we need to understand the social element, communication, teacher to student, student to student, student to teacher, teacher to teacher, the social relationships, the helpfulness, the communication, the pace of things. If things aren't right, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means they don't suit that individual. And that's what we need to be pulling out here. We need to almost pull out the emotion. And I know it's really hard, but in order to communicate this, we need to be able to look at things a little bit black and white, to be honest with you. The next one, which will not be achieved if we don't have these first three, academic outcomes. So this is all about how a child's academic ambitions match with a school. So you're not going to put a child, like for instance, one of my kids, she was offered a school that didn't do GCSEs because it was an autistic special school, but they didn't do GCSEs because of the sort of whatever, the offer that they had, they don't do GCSEs. And I said, well, that's not going to fit my child. She's on schedule right now to have level 9s across the board. She's incredibly bright. Yeah, but this is an autism school. That's not how it works. We have to measure other things. It's not just, oh, which kind of neurodivergence are you? Oh, the flaming hot type. Oh, you need to go there. That's not how it works. We're not on a spectrum, a linear spectrum, any of us. It's like a sphere. It's spherical. Okay, so we need to be looking at lots of different things. One of my kids, as I was just about to say, she's now in year 9, but when she entered year 7, she has a very spiky sensory profile. She is neurodivergent. She is hot and cold. I mean, the apple didn't fall far from the tree with this one. And when she started, she's very bright, but she's not interested in academics. She's a September baby, but very, very bright. Okay. And when she started senior school, I said to her, this year, I do not want you to focus on learning. And she's like, Mum, you're such a weirdo. No other parent is saying that to their kids. And I said, I know, but makes me the weirdo mum. That's all right. I'm okay. She said, so what do I need to be focusing on? And I said, I want you to focus on your well-being. How is your nervous system? And we do a lot of this coaching at home. It's not unusual language for us. So I said, how do you feel moving from class to class? Because now you're going from sitting in a class all day to moving, 3 or 4 times or whatever it is. How do you feel about finding your place now in a new social environment? How are you getting on with your teachers? How are you getting on with your new subjects? There's so many things that are not academic. Academic is like a byproduct. Okay. The academic outcomes are a byproduct. How much a child learns is a byproduct. I wanted her to focus on her and look inward and look at how she's feeling, how safe she feels. And in her first sort of point of review, towards Christmas, I had a report through and I was like, okay, the teachers think she's amazing across the board. This is great. She's getting on well. She seems to be blending in, not blending in. I mean, she'll always stand out that one, but she seems to be settling in. And she was also reporting the same to me. A few hiccups of friendships, I've met this person, whatever. But her academic stuff is on the floor. And I thought, I hope she doesn't see that because I don't want her confidence to be knocked. Anyway, of course, they have logins to everything. So she saw it. She was mortified. She went, it's not working. What you said is not working. And I said, please trust the process, my darling. And we'll review it again at Easter. We did. She committed to it. Easter time, her grades went up. End of summer term, back up to where they were. And do you know what? She's a great self-advocate. And she is somebody that if she gets negative points and she doesn't believe that she should have had them, she will appeal. She's incredible at self-advocacy. But that's not a happy accident. That comes from empowering, but we also can't knock our kids when we do that. Anyway, the top one in my Maslow is connectedness. And of course, with all of this, we can only then be connected to those and the things around us and learn the outcomes and everything if all of this is being met. So I'm going to put this on our Facebook page afterwards, okay, for you to have a good look. You can download it to your phone, keep it there, share it with school. But I want to talk a little bit about why school climate, so all this stuff, why it's becoming a problem. Well, when we think about the world around us, everything has changed since we were little. I've spoken before about shopping. When we had to go to the shops, we had to go to a shop, we had to pay in cash or the credit card. Do you know who's old enough? I mean, I used to work in a shop as a bloody 16-year-old. Who remembers those card machines? They were just like paper with carbon copy things underneath. The checks. Who remembers checks? Who uses checks anymore? We used a lot more cash, obviously, back in the 80s, 90s, noughties. We had to go into the shops, didn't we? Now, it's all online. You can pay with whatever you want now. You pay with your watch. Who would have predicted that one, by the way? When I used to have my little Swiss Swatch watch or whatever it was, I would never have thought that was the thing that I'd be paying for my shopping on, you know? Nothing was connected. There was no internet as such. I mean, there was the internet, but we weren't using it like we are now. And we would get out and we would have so much dopamine from the sun. Social media didn't exist. We were silenced as kids. We were because children should be seen and not heard. We shared clothes, didn't we? And hand-me-downs. That doesn't typically happen very much anymore. Everybody just jumps onto Vinted, don't they? They were lovely and soft, by the way, hand-me-downs. Can you see that? You see how sometimes the sensory things weren't being picked up because of the way that we were living. We didn't have to wear school uniform until senior school. I didn't anyway. We had a school uniform, but we didn't have to wear it. So we'd be wearing really comfy clothes. I remember seeing pictures of myself, really comfy clothes. Mums didn't work anywhere near as much as they do now. I know that my mum, incredibly intelligent woman, she actually just though took a job that was not like living to her skill set or her potential so that she could be around us more. She could be around during school holidays. She could be available before school, after school. We were never having to leave ourselves in and out of the house because she based her entire work around us. And the food was always on the table. Life was cheaper. Life was cheaper. I mean, my mum didn't drive, so we walked for miles. So for little old undiagnosed ADHD here, I wonder why it wasn't picked up. My needs were being met. I played so much sport as well, but this was great. Really, really good. for getting all of our bodily functions, whether they're nervous system, emotional, physical, all of our needs were being met so much better in those days because things have moved on, things are different. Um, and I think that that is a big factor here as well. And nobody's to blame, by the way. This is a societal shift. It's been happening over time. It's going to be really hard for us to undo it. Um, but I think kids' play these days looks very, very different, doesn't it? But going back to the sort of differences between back then and now, going back to that shopping experience, when we think of other things like that, so everything is digital, everything's online, kids socializing is all online now. I mean, one of mine is, an avid gamer, and she's constantly talking to her friends online. So she's still socializing, but it looks very different to what I used to do. Films. Then we used to go and watch a film, and we'd go to the video shop to hire a film. I mean, that was the highlight of my week. Had to get it back on time. Not one of my fortes. That I always had a bill at the video shop. TV was live, or you had to tape it. You had to tape it, or you missed it. There was no on-demand entertainment like there is now. Everything was different. But you know what wasn't different? School. I just find the school just feels and looks the same in the majority of schools like it did back then. So whilst our children are now growing up in a completely different life, they're having to go back in time to be educated. It just seems a little bonkers. We share an infographic on our socials quite frequently about how school looked in the Victorian ages. It really doesn't look that different. And people say to us, oh, the majority of people agree. Some people will say that's not how school looks. Actually, we visit a lot of schools. A lot of schools still look like that. 30 to 40 in a classroom, all sitting still, staring forward, not allowed to fidget. It's really frustrating. Given what we know now, science has moved on. It's not that we've got more autistic people. We haven't got more ADHDers. We have science. We have more stars in the sky as well, if you want to come down to that, because we've learned more. We should know more. We're just being identified, that's all. I still existed in the 80s. I was walking among you then, like I am now. But now I know that I've got ADHD. I didn't then. Didn't know till I was 40. We can't compare our children's childhood to the one that we had. It's worlds apart, however, education is the same. So our kids, like I say, are walking around living their best life in 2026, and then they go back like 200 years to be educated. Back in the war, just before the war, Second World War, there was this sort of surgence of outdoor schools where children learned all day outdoor and they slept outdoor. I found a picture online of one in my local neighbourhood down in South Wales. And then because of the war, everything changed. Nobody's ever pushed it back. I mean, there are people doing it now. I mean, we've got forest schools and stuff. But we did know then. That was like, it wasn't seen as radical. It was like, well, of course, it makes sense. So actually, when we're speaking to Bob about his, it wasn't like this in my day, actually, it would have been if it hadn't been for the war, possibly. So what I don't quite understand, and it's something I struggle with myself, is just how much the government, the powers, how they are struggling to understand that our children are essentially asked to time travel to go back into school. And I think that our children are finding that quite traumatizing when they're affected in this way, when they're affected by the fact they're having to go back in time to be educated in these old-fashioned ways. It really does affect their ability to function because they're being trained in other areas of life to function in a certain way. Then they're going back in time. When we think about executive function, and again, if you want to understand this, because it sounds like a scientific term, but we all have executive function and it fluctuates. Everybody's executive function fluctuates. It's how we perform every day. Planning, working memory, time management, regulating emotions, starting and finishing tasks. Some of us are better at it than others, and it fluctuates. And it fluctuates throughout our lives. But it really affects us if we're neurodivergent. And we're not thinking about that enough. If you want to learn more about executive function, we've got a brilliant webinar actually on our Sunshine Academy. Just comment Sunshine Academy at any point if you need the link for that. But, trauma affects executive function. Mental health affects executive function. Anxiety, school, the stress and the strain of it affects executive function. So many of us will say my child can really perform at home, but they can't in school or vice versa because they're affected. Okay. Um, their executive function is affected. Um, I mean, I appreciate as well that there's loads to learn as a parent these days, but you know, we've got everything you need, by the way, on the Sunshine Academy if you need it. It's a really good one-stop shop, like I said. But at the same time, if we want to advocate effectively for our children, we need to understand the language that we need to use. Because a lot of the time, as send parents, as parents, we try to advocate from a position of emotion and anger. Believe me, I've been there. And we're not making ourselves clear and we sound crazy sometimes. I know I really have. When I look back at some of the emails I wrote like 10 years ago, I'm like cringing. Like, why did you have to say that? You would have been so much better if you'd calmed yourself down and paused and done 6 edits of that email before you sent it and used your knowledge rather than your emotion. And that's where we come in at Sunshine because we can help you with that knowledge so that you're communicating more effectively. And I think something else we need to learn as well is the school isn't the only place that you can learn. There are so many ways of learning. There's flexible schooling. There's alternative provision. Alternative provision used to be awful back in the day, but now there's some incredible ones set up. There's education other than in school, EOTAS. That's on the rise big time. I remember when we first set up Sunshine, that was rare to get EOTAS packages. But now I would say that we're getting those sorted for parents every single week. In fact, Kelly, who heads up our consultancy team here, she's done so many courses on this over on the Academy. So if you want to understand how EOTAS, home ed, alternative provision, any type, I mean, there's so many different types of provision, by the way, because there's special and specialist, 2 different types of provision. If you want to understand that better, Kelly's got loads of courses over on the Academy. I'll come to your comments in a second. I promise you I'm nearly done. I have absolutely ploughed through the information I wanted to share with you this morning. I'm very proud of myself. I didn't deviate too far, did I? Now, we've also got some great live webinars coming up that you might want to take a look at, because I think if today has resonated, which I'm hoping it has, there will be some things that you can take action on quite quickly. And that's where I think some of our webinars are going to be really, really helpful for you. With regards to our resources, we've got tons more. You know, I showed you the school climate one, which we'll share afterwards. We're also going to share some of these afterwards. So this is preparing your child for school, school refusal. Remember, it's not refusal. And it's not always emotional. Okay, there are reasons. So it's EBSA, emotional-based school refusal. Emotions come from physical things. Don't blame their emotions. It sounds like they're weak. Actually, there's a hard fact behind why they're not going to school. Really great resource. And EHCPs, we've got loads of resources like this on EHCP. We've got hundreds of them, guys. They're all on our website, hundreds and hundreds. We've been busy designing. Right, let me come to your questions. Let's have a quick look. Keep them coming, by the way. So, good morning from Barnsley over on YouTube. My son hasn't been in a school setting for 2 years. He's autistic, profound PDA. Barnsley don't diagnose PDA. Still exists though. EHC team don't recognise it. They will if you take him to court, to tribunal. It's been like World War III. Recently been to a tribunal and won. There we go. I didn't even see that bit before I said that. So yes, you know, pathological demand avoidance, PDA. One of my children has this. It's not a diagnosis, okay? Don't shoot me down. That is science. It's not a diagnosis. It's a profile of autism currently. That is how it's seen. And it is exactly what it says on the tin. Pathological demand avoidance or pervasive drive for autonomy. It's an anxiety-driven presentation. The more anxious a child is, the more demand avoidant they become. We have got so many courses on this. PDA is actually one of the reasons I set up Sunshine Support. And it's one of the main reasons I know Kelly Jarvis, who heads up our consultancy team. She is a PDA specialist educator. Incredible educator. She's got a lot of courses, as do all the PDA greats, Phil Christie, Ruth Fiddler, Judy Eaton, Libby Hill, all their content. I think Laura Kirby as well. All their content is on our Sunshine Academy. Check it out, because if you want to know more about PDA, That's where you need to be. There's too many things for me to cover in one Facebook Live on PDA. I'm so glad you won the tribunal. That gives people hope. So guys, have hope. Another comment from our YouTube. If someone goes to school and sits at a table but does nothing, that's okay because they get 100% attendance. Yes, this is what I'm saying. We have to stop chasing attendance figures because, like somebody once said to me, and it's something that's stuck in my brain, forcing a child into school just so they have a tick on the register and calling that education is like throwing marshmallows at my head and calling it eating. It's not, but if you work on the connection, safety first, safety first. Once a child is safe, exactly like I said with my child who went into year 7 or, a few years ago, once you understand that you're safe and you're wanted and you're welcome and things are just right for you and you're understanding the pace and you can safely self-advocate, the learning just happens. It's a byproduct. So same with attendance. Same with attendance. Let's come to some of your questions on Facebook. So, daughter got into a SEN school after a 2-year fight, and now she can't go into the SEN school. It's so tough. It's so hard. And when we're choosing provisions, it is always a guess because actually, what might seem suitable, and I've done this, I've been here, it's heartbreaking. What might seem suitable, particularly with some of our neurodivergent children, particularly with our PDAs, next week might not work. And that's heartbreaking. Kelly Jarvis, she's here. She's in the room, our queen. Some of the most innovative thinkers I've ever taught had a PDA profile. Made me so mad that some educators saw PDA as a battle to have. We need to remember who the difficulty belongs to. If we are, if we're the adult in the room, we need to meet the child where the child is. That's what Kelly's essentially saying there. It's not our battle to have. It's us as the cognitively able nervous system, nice and quiet and calm and alert. If that's you and you're the adult in the room, then you need to approach that child with maturity, for goodness sake. It's not a power battle. Caroline says, do you think that academies and the way that they are run and their so-called rules and procedures is what's caused the huge rise in non-attendance for SEN children, more so than in secondary schools? So, it's a sweeping one, this, because my kids go to an academy, my younger 3, and it's exceptional. And so I don't think we can call academies the reason. I think it's down to individual practice. What I always worry about, because it can work in a good way and a bad way, is that this sort of culture, it's culture, climate culture, trickles down from the top. So if you have a good leader, then that trickles down. If you have a bad leader, that also trickles down. We've seen those bad ones on the news, haven't we? Where they're like, we have zero tolerance to this, zero. It's not a prison, mate. It's a school, and these are kids. What are you treating them like adults for? I think a lot of the time as well, adults treat kids with a higher expectation of behavior than them. Because you see some of these people having road rage outside, and that's okay, apparently. But a child who's saying, these bright lights are hurting me, that's not okay. Shut up, they're told. Oh, honestly, it really winds me up. Amy says, I took my daughter out of school 2 weeks ago due to daily anxiety and being punished for going mute. Oh my God, well done. Well done. That is not a safe space. I have selective mutism. I've got low profile. Not that you'd guess, because I feel safe right now. Look at that. And I'm telling you now, being punished when you can't talk, your throat can actually seize up, with selective mutism or situational mutism. So she was punished for going mute and not going into lessons by sitting on stairwells in the school. That is something one of my kids would do. And yeah, I would not be apologetic about it either. School helping her was to put her in isolation. Yeah, that's helpful, isn't it? Making things such worse. I have profound autistic twins, almost 4, that have no intention of putting into school. I'll be home educating them, however that looks. You know what? I don't blame you. I really, really don't blame you. And it's really sad. I hope the government are listening to this because I think they've cherry picked some of the stories that they're using for the Send white paper, just putting it out there. And we have a member of staff here who home educates. I've talked about her a lot, and I'm going to get her on a podcast. I will persuade her to come on a podcast. She home educates all three of her children. They are so happy, so content, so bright. And she has such a beautiful connection with them. They're so calm. They're just as little children should be. They don't get stressed about stuff, not like, some kids do. My son is 16 and I cannot get him into school at least 3 days a week. So one of the things I want to say about this, right? Reduced timetables. I'll make this brief. A lot of schools will say, well, just come in for 30 minutes a day. One of my children who had really, really significant school attendance difficulties and ended up in a highly specialist residential provision. She said to me, Mum, whether I go in for 30 minutes or whether I go in for 6 hours, I still get hurt because it feels like a burning building. She said, please listen to me. And it made me take stock. At that point, I was like, I'm not forcing attendance anymore. But by the way, I did force attendance, I did what I thought the state was telling me to do, the right thing to do. I was, and if any of you have forced attendance, whilst I don't encourage it at all, please let yourself off the hook because it's told, we're told that we have to do that. And so, yeah, for my child, I did force attendance. I regret it. It's one of my biggest life regrets, but I know better now, so I wouldn't do it now. But we need to think about it that way. So whether your child's going in, if the school climate isn't suitable, it doesn't matter whether they're going in for, just visiting the front of the building or going in for a week. It still hurts them. It's not right. We have got an incredible school non-attendance assessment tool that you can download and use. It has to be used between the parent, the teacher, and the child, with the child's voice being the loudest in the room. This tool is available on our Sunshine Academy. It's got loads of courses attached to it, so you feel really equipped to carry out the assessment. And it's evidence. It's evidence towards your EHCP. It's evidence towards the next provision that's needed. It's solid evidence. Guys, get on the Sunshine Academy and download it. It's an incredible tool. Whether you're a teacher, whether you're a parent, it doesn't matter. The point is, the most important thing is that one of you grabs the bull by the horns here, downloads it and starts using it. The tool is designed to uncover the why your child or, the child that you're supporting, why they cannot attend that provision. And also it helps us to understand whether we can fix it or whether we need to find something else. And I think that sometimes we just have to accept that it's not the right fit. It's nobody's fault. It's just not the right fit. We are where we are. It is what it is. I hope that you found that useful today. Keep your questions coming because I can continue to make videos over on my Instagram channel. And we also have tons of daily videos as well over on our YouTube channel. So if you have a YouTube account, please do subscribe to us over there. You will see loads of free resources just coming at you daily to help you with things like this. The more information you give us about what you're experiencing, the more we can tailor those responses for you and make sure that they're validating and informative and helpful. But if you want that more in-depth knowledge and you want to really, truly, effectively advocate, whether you're a child, if you're a child, you can do it over the age of 16. It's up to you. You're an adult now. But if you're a parent or maybe a family member or a carer, or a professional, teacher, social worker, whatever. We have two different areas of our Sunshine Academy, one set up for professionals, one set up for parents. That way everybody feels like they're in a safe space. You can sign up. It's a monthly subscription that you can cancel at any time. So if you want to just sign up for a month, get what you need, and then disappear again, we're not going to judge you. That's what it's there for. It's for you, designed with you in mind by us. Send parents as well, as much as we are professionals in the field, we're send parents, or like me, you're the send kid who grew up and everything's okay, and I want to give you hope. All right, it will be okay, but you're not alone. The main theme here this morning is that you're not alone. Look how many hundreds of comments we've got. You're not alone. So just reach out. Never suffer in silence. If you need anything at all, if you can't find the links that you're after, ping us a message. We're here to help. We've got a lovely team here. We don't bite. Just make sure you make good use of us. Okay? But have a lovely day. I hope that was useful. Let us know your thoughts. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with our next Facebook and YouTube Live. Keep an eye on our pages to see what that's going to be about. See you soon. Bye.